Ever heard of the time Australia went to war against birds? Sounds like something out of a comedy sketch, but it actually happened. In 1932, Australia found itself in a bizarre conflict with thousands of emus, giant flightless birds that managed to outwit and outlast the military. This unusual chapter in history is known as the Emu War. So, how did it all begin? Let's take a closer look at what led to this feathered fiasco. After World War I, many Australian soldiers returned home, eager to rebuild their lives. To support their reintegration, the government offered them farmland in Western Australia, where they could cultivate crops and start anew. It seemed like a great idea until reality hit. Farming in Western Australia wasn't easy. The soil was tough, water was scarce, and droughts were common. But the real trouble began in the early 1930s when an unexpected invasion took place. An invasion of emus. You see, after the government cleared vast tracts of land for farming, they unknowingly created the perfect habitat for these large, flightless birds. Attracted by the fields of wheat and abundant water sources, tens of thousands of emus migrated to the region, and they were hungry. Emus may look harmless, but they're surprisingly destructive. Standing over 6 feet tall and capable of running at speeds of up to 30 miles per hour, these birds descended on farmland in droves, trampling crops and devouring everything in their path. Farmers were at their wits' end. Not only were they struggling with the Great Depression and low wheat prices, but now their livelihoods were under siege from what they called feathered pests. Desperate for a solution, they turned to the government for help. And in true military fashion, the government responded with guns. In November 1932, the Australian government deployed soldiers armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition to deal with the emu menace. The plan seemed simple: track the birds, open fire, and solve the problem. But there was one thing the government didn't take into account. The emus weren't going down without a fight. The first confrontation took place on November 2nd, 1932 in the Campion district. The soldiers spotted a group of about 50 emus and opened fire. The result? Chaos. The emus scattered in all directions, making it nearly impossible to hit them. Their speed and unpredictable movements allowed them to evade the gunfire with ease. Even when soldiers managed to take down a few birds, the rest would simply regroup and keep going. One soldier later compared shooting at emus to fighting guerrilla warfare because the birds operated in small groups, outflanking their opponents with remarkable strategy. The military soon realized that chasing emus with machine guns mounted on trucks wasn't effective. The rough terrain made it difficult to drive, and the emus could easily outrun the vehicles. At one point, the soldiers tried to ambush the birds at a watering hole, but even that failed. The emus simply avoided the area and found other sources of water. The biggest shock, however, came when the soldiers discovered just how tough emus really were. Some birds managed to survive multiple gunshots and kept running, earning them the nickname bulletproof birds. After several weeks of failed attempts, the government decided to withdraw the military effort. In total, it's estimated that around 1,000 emus were killed. But with over 20,000 still at large, the war was far from won. The Emu War became a source of national embarrassment. The media had a field day, ridiculing the government's failure to defeat a flock of birds. The Minister of Defense at the time even admitted that the emus had military tactics of a highly developed order. After the failure of the Emu War, the government turned to a more practical solution, offering farmers bounties for every emu killed. Eventually, they also built fences to keep the birds out, similar to the famous rabbit-proof fence of Australia. Today, the Emu War is remembered as a quirky but important lesson in wildlife management and military overconfidence. So, what can we learn from the Emu War? Well, sometimes brute force isn't the answer, especially when you're up against nature. The emus proved that intelligence, adaptability, and persistence can overcome even the most determined human efforts. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us to respect the resilience of the natural world. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more fascinating stories from history to life. Also hit the bell icon so you never miss out on our next upload. Until next time, stay curious.